and it is episode 196 of the Metal Roundtable. I am Metal Rob, and with me, as always, from episode uno, that guy right there.
Car Crash John, or Caracas, or...
That's right.
Karakin.
I was looking back through the episodes, and I noticed that this guy was on episode 89, and I know you've been here longer than that. So
that's half the episodes.
That's more than half. Yeah. Do you know what episode you started on, Scott?
I have no idea. No idea.
All I know is if we keep our current pace, that episode 200 will be on Halloween. Ooh.
Okay. I smell a theme, but right down there is a guy with an encyclopedic knowledge of metal. Harmless Rebel is here, and we like that.
Yes, we do.
Maybe, I don't know about an encyclopedic knowledge. Maybe a
Reader's Digest of knowledge.
Maybe one volume of the encyclopedia.
I don't know, dude. You seem to know. I'm impressed every time you're on the show because I'm like, shit, I didn't know that. And you'll enjoy it.
He knows a lot more about new metal than I ever thought I could remember.
Damien Hair Metal is here. Metal Overkill is here. The King is here. No Baloney Anzalone is here. Where are you from, No Baloney? I can't remember. Tony Clem is here. I can't believe he hasn't said Osric Tentacles yet.
Oh, we'll say it for sure.
You just did. No,
yeah,
you just did.
He baited you with that just by his name.
I figure I might as, if you can't beat him, join him, you know? So
yes.
Whatever.
They're not whatever, you know, you like them.
Well, let's go around the horn real quick. I picked up a couple things this week, and I'll do a shout out rolled in to that. I'll do that first, actually. Scott, I have your copy of this album. The Hardesty TX album is out. You can Google that on Bandcamp. Search it on Bandcamp. Hardesty TX. Carcass did the artwork. This is an old friend of mine, Charles Presley, and he was wanting to get his album done, and he did. And it is here. Mm-hmm. So if you want one of those, go to Bandcamp and you can find it. Also, look up Hardesty TX on Facebook. I think there's a Facebook page, but I know you can find it on Bandcamp. So,
yeah, it's on Bandcamp.
Yeah, he sent me a copy. I did master it for him. Thank you so much for that. Charles, I know him as Rusty because I know him from many past lives ago.
Yeah, you kept saying Charles, and I'm like,
yeah. He's Rusty to me, but he goes by Charles. So
there you go.
And then a couple things I picked up. I haven't even opened this yet because I've been so busy, but this showed up late last week. The new KK's Priest, featuring friends of the show.
Oh, yeah.
Sean Elg is on that. And
so I got Casey Trask on it, too?
You know what?
Is he the second guitarist?
I was just going to say Casey's name, and I want to make sure.
From the Mighty Monarch. I posted after last week's health scare. I'm feeling pretty frisky today, and yesterday last night I posted something that was more to my mood on Facebook, and it was the Monarch. The whole gatefold opened up.
It is Tony Newton on bass, KK Downing on guitar, Tim Ripper Owens on vocals, AJ Mills on guitar, and Sean Elg on drums.
I think Casey filled in for a couple of dates. That's what it was. But
Casey's a badass, whether he's in KK's Priest or not. We saw him fill in Hellstar and do a phenomenal job.
Dude, he's a ripper.
Dude.
He also does he's in a Van Halen tribute band. He's also in a Kiss tribute band. The guy can play anything. He's really awesome.
He's Van Halen tribute too, I think.
Yes.
So, and I'll open this as well on the show. Why not? Because I have been anticipating this since the night I went and saw it in the theater. one of the single best documentaries I've ever seen. The Dio Dream of Never Die.
Dio.
You could pre-order it on Amazon for a while, but only on Blu-ray. And there's a deluxe edition that's $100 that's got patches and stickers and a bunch of stuff in it. But I just wanted the DVD because I'm old. So, yeah, there you go.
Okay.
I will probably be watching this after the show.
Awesome.
What about you, Circus? What's going on in your world?
Other than feeling better, I mean, I just it was so bad. The Queen actually had COVID for the 6th time, despite her vaxes and boosts and boosters and all that. But yeah, she's good now, back to work, and I felt like I was that kind of sick, but I tested 5 days in a row and was negative. So, but yeah, I feel great. And I haven't really had a chance to pick up anything because between work and then feeling like the gutter, I haven't really done anything. Although I did find this really killer Dawn of the Dead Goblin soundtrack on 180 gram clear amber vinyl for cheap. And but other than that, I'm just I did get the new Tomb Mold. I did get the new Blood Incantation. I think I mentioned that last week. Played some of those tracks on The Crypt on Friday last week. So, and as I told Scott earlier in the day, I finally cracked open those Rocks Records comps that he sent me months and months ago, and I'm going to cherry pick some songs from Biogenesis and the remix of Nevermore and Flotsam and Jetsam, and mix those into the track listing on Friday at 6:00 Central Standard Time on Deep Dallas Radio, which you can also listen to the Metal Roundtable on Deep Dallas Radio. Is that not correct? Herr Roberto?
Yes, on their Facebook page. Yes, we
Okay.
do stream live on their Facebook page. And Gary is saying that he can't find our live feed on YouTube.
What?
Mhm.
Did you forget to push the button again?
And I'm scared to death that I'm going to owe him $20 in a couple of weeks.
The Eagles look pretty good there,
Yeah,
but
they do, man, and I hate that. But
I don't know, man.
I'm getting it on there.
what's
You're
that?
getting it on there?
Yeah,
Yeah, I was
the
just-
Metal Roundtable page. It's up there.
Okay. Well, I'm
I'll
not
find
worried about the Eagles. I'm not worried about the Cowboys because the Niners look pretty tough this year. So.
Yeah, I got your team coming up this weekend. And
Oh, really? How
I'm a
exciting!
Saints fan, and they blew it this last weekend. That's the worst they've ever. That's the worst they've looked in 20 years.
Who's that?
The Saints.
Oh, is that your team?
Yep.
Oh, man, yeah. If I were going to have an alternate team, the Saints would be in my top 4 or 5. That if I had to jump ship, if the Cowboys franchise dumped off the planet, which I suppose is always possible.
I got the.
Gary,
I like the
I
Saints.
just put the link to the show in there. So
Yep. Okay.
Okay, cool. Scott, what's going on with you, brother?
I'm excited. I got finally in the mail
Nice.
Anger is Art vinyl, Virtual Sympathy. My copy's autographed by the whole band. They had a album listening party in LA, and so they got a bunch of copies signed to give people, but they actually signed mine to me, which is kind of nice. But I love this album. It's been a frequent player for me. So also got me an Anger is Art shirt. So
Nice.
yeah, that was a nice little surprise. They sent it to me for free because I couldn't go to the show.
Huh.
It would have taken me a long time. It would take me a long time to walk there.
One thing about being sick for a week is I'm actually wearing a shirt that I haven't worn in 20 years. So, a Violence Oppressing the Masses tour shirt.
Nice.
That's the first shirt that you've worn in all the episodes I've seen that I didn't have to strain to figure out.
Yeah, no kidding.
Although you did pull one out of the fires with that worm, with Worm. Boy, that was impressive, Steve.
That was a pretty good one. That was a lot.
You've got skins on the wall already. So
Yeah. Steve, what's going on in your world, brother?
I just came back from Florida and did a little, kind of not the best dig this time, but I did run across this. I've been looking for this for a while.
Oh, nice.
A little bit of
I've got a repressing of that. Is that an original press?
No, the original press is like $600. This is
Yeah, but still good album.
A few years ago.
Is that the Canadian rock band or whatever? Metal
Yeah,
rock?
they're Canadian.
Are they
early metal, proto metal?
Canadian? I'm not sure.
Yeah, they're Canadian. They're very, kind of heavy like Sabbath stuff.
And then this
late '60s, if I'm not mistaken.
The Tools of the Trade.
Oh, dude.
And the Heartwork EP that they just repressed. I don't think this has ever been together on vinyl before.
No, it hasn't. I've got the Heartwork EP, and then I've got them separately, but never together.
Yeah, I've got them both on CD from when they came out. But yeah, they just announced this one, and of course it comes with a huge seam split across the top. But and then I picked up a couple cassettes too while I was there. They had them for $1 a piece, but Queensryche, The Warning. I think we talked about that last week.
Mm-hmm.
One of the greatest albums of all time, in Trance.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that's a good copy too.
And then Trust. I don't know if you guys remember Trust out there.
Of course. French band.
Antisocial.
I would also excuse me, Steve. I'm sorry. I would also like to apologize for the construction sounds coming from next door.
I can barely hear him, so you're good.
Okay, good. I'm glad to know that. Sorry, Steve. Go ahead.
No, that was it. No, Joba just said he got gifted a S.A. Slayer CD. Man, you can't go wrong with S.A.
Man,
Slayer.
I think he wins the new acquisitions war.
Yeah, that's a.
They
EP
just
and the album are great.
They just put those out on vinyl, by the way, and the sound is way better than the original. But I have the originals, so. But anyway,
so the drummer from Sacred Reich was in S.A. Slayer. So if you see Sacred Reich live and bring up S.A. Slayer, he'll talk your ear off for an hour.
Dave McClain?
Yeah.
Is he in Sacred Reich now? He was in Machine Head for years.
Well, he was in Sacred Reich in the 90s and then left right after.
Oh, that's
Heel.
right. Okay.
He recorded Heel and then left right after that, and then
cool.
He came back maybe 4 or 5 years ago when they got back together.
Yeah, I know he left Machine Head under duress.
Well, everybody left Machine Head after
Phil Demmel left.
It was after what's his name decided to go nu metal again with that last album that they did.
Yeah,
I think right after that the whole band quit. So
yeah, I think when Phil had finally had enough, that everybody had enough. But he's basically got the original. He's got Logan, what's his name, back in the band, and I mean, they're essentially the same band when they recorded the first couple, including the wonderful Supercharger.
I tried forever to like Machine Head, and
they had that album with what was the album with the red cover on it? Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Booyah.
The trick is finding the Slayer album before they added the SA. Those have shot up in price.
Used to have that.
Yeah.
Used to.
Yeah, they actually played the Showcase Theater in San Antonio. Slayer versus LA Slayer versus San Antonio Slayer. The show is legendary because all the San Antonio Slayer fans turned their back to the stage while LA Slayer played. And there's actually a Brazilian import of that show. I've got a copy if anybody's interested. I'm sure it's a special pressing. But yeah, all right. There's one. I'll just I'll button it up and MP3 it to you guys. It's actually pretty good.
I like it.
Don't want to break any laws. Anyway.
No. Sorry, man. I need to put this thing as far away as humanly possible.
Please do.
This has nothing to do with the show, obviously, but I get this robocall from Lincoln, Nebraska, and I was messing with my phone, turning it off and down. It calls me 10 times a day, the same number, so I need to just block it.
Block it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Fraser,
you have the technology.
Well, yeah. I think your car's extended warranty has expired.
Probably. Well, yeah, with 154,000 miles, I would say yes.
Yes, the new Nervosa is pretty terrifying.
Either that or your Google ads is not doing well, so you need some help.
Right. Right. Well, let's get into it. in our text
Not
group,
mine, baby.
In our text group, it was suggested that we talk about concerts, favorite concert experiences, worst concert experiences, blah blah, on and on and on. So that's what we're going to do. But I'm going to let you boys lead the charge on that. So,
Well, I usually get these random requests on Facebook, and I don't answer them because I don't want people cherry picking my info or whatever. But this just happened to come from a buddy of mine down in kind of in the Corpus Christi, San Antonio area, Rene Cuellar. I've known him, since I moved to Texas in 83, 84. And so I thought I would answer, and man, you know me, it doesn't take much to get a hot sports opinion. So I just thought it sounded like kind of a good subject because I reminisced a little bit. And so anyway, yeah, first concert, favorite concert or best concert, and the worst concert experience. So
Okay.
go ahead.
Start with one and we'll go around.
Yeah, you kick it off, John.
My first concert experience was Black Oak, Arkansas with Ruby Starr. And it was a wild experience. I think I was 14 or 15 at the Garrett Coliseum in Montgomery, Alabama. And our buddy Terry Sullivan, JT, he'll remember that. He was younger, 2 years younger, but and wasn't with me. But anyway, it was loud, and Jim Dandy came to the rescue, and Ruby Starr was all of a sudden I had a thing for redheads, even though I was just a young man. So, but and all I remember is it was just loud and it was raucous, and they played for about an hour and 15 minutes, and I loved every minute of it. That's what I remember. That's what I remember.
Right on.
And their catalog is pretty deep, and I didn't remember that they were. I don't know. I was so infatuated with bands with keyboards like Deep Purple and Grand Funk, and I mean even Aerosmith to a point had keyboards.
They were a weird one though, because they were Southern rock, but they did some like prog stuff, and that they're a trippy band.
Yeah, they were very, very trippy. In fact, I think that they probably could have compiled 3 or 4 albums into one like epic, fantastic record. There seemed to be a lot of like one-hit wonders on each record, and then a lot of filler. So seeing them live, I kind of like Rob would say, I'm kind of a greatest hits guy on Black Oak, Arkansas, and I'm still I'm still that way.
Those guys are still together. They put out a new album this year.
What?
A buddy of mine is a huge fan of them, buys everything they put out. And yeah, they have a new album that came out just this year. So yeah. Jim Dandy's still, out in front.
He's still rescuing
the other original members. He's still out there rescuing. Yep.
What Black Oak, Arkansas song would I know?
Jim Dandy to the rescue.
Mama, I got a hot.
If you heard Jim Dandy to the rescue, you would know it.
Well, and David Lee Roth took a lot of inspiration from Jim Dandy.
Yeah,
a lot.
Jim Dandy Magnum was his name, and he was somewhere between David Lee Roth and a professional wrestler. I mean, he was a dynamic. Jumped around, did the splits.
David Lee Roth stole his stick completely.
I think the leather pants stitched together, the leaning back, the shirtless chest, the whole business. The guy was,
he was in that case, man. He would jump off he was stage diving before stage diving was popular.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen pictures of the guy, but and I'm not trying to be distracted here. I'm trying to find.
So who's the guy? Jesse, the guy from
Jesse James Dupree from Jackal.
Yeah, he's like somewhere between David Lee Roth and Jesse James Dupree. Those guys probably drew major influence from Jim Dandy. But right. Jim Dandy was doing it back in the early 70s, late 60s.
Yeah, I would check, if you want to check out an album, check out High on the Hog. It's pretty much, most people consider it one of their best.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably their best record. But I don't even know
how. Album. A lot of people love the live album, but I remember back in the day, that album was like, because it's got some backwards masking on purpose bull crap on it. It was like every church was up in arms about it. But Runch and Roll live.
Oh, that's right.
Natas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Made it sell more copies. Way to go.
Oh, of course it did.
Of course it did. Yeah, everybody had their curiosity. But anyway, yeah, that was my first experience at the old Garrett Coliseum. I bet that barn's not there. I'll have to ask Terry.
Jim Dandy's got one of the best album covers. You see a solo album where he's got the big old samurai sword over his head?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
My first, I grew up as a kid in grade school. I got into hard rock and metal, and what we called metal back then, stuff like Aerosmith and Ted Nugent and Black Sabbath and that kind of stuff. But my parents, especially my dad, was into classical music, and my mom just didn't give a crap about music. So getting them to take me to go see Kiss in 1977, which I would have loved to have done, was not going to happen. So they basically told me, when you can drive, you can go to whatever concert you want to go to. So when I hit, whatever age it was, 16, I think it was back then. Yep, I was driving to the Spectrum in Philadelphia. So my first concert experience was actually right before I got my driver's license, but a friend had his, and went to see Aerosmith and Pat Travers. Pat Travers was on the Black Pearl tour. He was phenomenal, and Aerosmith were on the Rockin' Hard Place tour. So it was Sands, Perry, and Whitford.
So it was Jimmy Crespo and
Rick Dufay.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Yep, they were, and I loved it. I actually have still have back then they used to sell tour buttons, and I still have the tour button in one of my shadow boxes. So don't have the T-shirt anymore. I wish I did, because now you see that same T-shirt on eBay and it's like $400. It's like, I wouldn't pay $400 for a T-shirt. So
I remember the day I sold all my concert T-shirts to a record store in Fort Worth for $4 a piece.
Yeah. Some of them aren't worth much, but some of them are worth a lot. So
yeah.
I got a Dark Angel 1991 tour shirt over here that someone offered me $200 for, and like, no.
Nah, keep it, man.
It's framed on the wall, and it's autographed by Ron. So yeah, it was given to me by Ron. It was his personal tour shirt that he used to wear on stage. So yeah, I don't.
Oh yeah, you can't. Yeah, you can't let that go ever.
Technically, my first concert was Eric Clapton in like 84 or 85. He played at the military base we were on in Germany, and I barely remember it. The only remember I have, and even at a young age, I knew something was off, was he was singing Cocaine, and all these military guys around were singing along to the song. And I'm just like, whatever, And now, granted, this was in the 80s, early 80s, before all the drug stuff went into effect. So maybe, but it was just funny seeing all these military guys sing along. But honestly, my first concert where I went, and I remember it was either 87 or 88, and it was White Cross was playing it. They did a West Coast tour. Do you guys have Peter Piper Pete's out there where you are?
Yep, we did.
So in Arizona, there was a competitor called Pistol Pete's that they ended up buying.
Oh yeah, so we have Pistol Pete's now. They bought out the other one. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. So Pistol Pete's was the big place in Tucson, in Phoenix, and I didn't even know who White Cross were. I didn't know what kind of music was. We passed by Pistol Pete's on the way home from school, and there was a sign a poster on the door that said concert and all you can eat pizza for $7.
Oh man!
So I talked my mom into letting me and my buddy go, because it was across the street from where we lived. I was in like 6th grade at the time, and we went over there, and it turned out, White Cross, for you guys that aren't familiar, Christian metal band. When they were still metal, they kind of went a different direction a couple albums later, but they were touring for their second album, and man, it was a fantastic show. And for $7, I was pretty much hooked after that.
Yeah, I liked White Cross back then. Still do, actually. That stuff. I didn't like stuff they did afterwards, but the first 3-4 albums were good.
My first one was, I was trying to look for the ticket. I took them out of scrapbooks, and I've got them a bunch of them in this bag. Obviously not all of them, apparently. My first show was either in late 86 or early 87. That's what I was trying to prove to myself by finding the ticket stub. It was Rat on the Dancing Undercover tour with Poison opening. And I've told this on the show before, but Rat, that's my favorite Rat album. It always will be. I love it. Every note on the album I think is great, and they were awesome. But when you go back and you listen to Rat from that era live, it was just awful. But I don't remember that. I don't remember off-key vocals. I don't remember, clammed notes on guitar. I don't remember any of that. It was just, to me, it was massive. And Poison, the thing I remember, Poison played first. It was just two bands as far as I remember, Rat and Poison. Poison came out. It was their first big tour. And I just remember the energy. I just remember they were on fire, man. I couldn't believe how great they were, in spite of all the running around and jumping around and all the costume shit they had. And then Rat came out and just, did their thing, which I thought was great. But a few years ago, and it seemed like the arena was massive, but a few years ago, I went back over there. It was at the Tarrant County Convention Center, which I think is still there, but I'm not sure. And I walk into the place. I was there at a car show, and the door to the arena was open, and there was not a soul in there. And I walked in there, and I couldn't believe how tiny the place was. It might have held 3,000 people. And so your perspective changes, but that was my first show, and I remember it very, very fondly. I've never been able to find a bootleg of it or any pictures from it or anything like that. But I'll find the ticket and have the date and do some research there. But that was my first show.
All right. So, next question. Should we do the worst bet or the best first?
Let's do the worst first and get it over with. So I don't want to end on the worst.
Well, let's see. I remember when I signed into this thing, I had several, and I'm sorry. I loathe Guns N' Roses. I just loathe them. They're always late. They're arrogant now. And as Steph and I had this discussion the other day, she loves Slash, and I think Slash is a serviceable guitarist, despite the fact that he doesn't use his pinky, whatever. I'm not a guitar player, but he has a good certain style, and those albums that he did with Miles Kennedy are pretty good. But I saw them opening for Faster Pussycat and LA Guns at Ricky Rackman's Cat House of all places, and I was there because somebody else wanted to go. It wasn't my cup of tea, but I went, and they were the third rung on the ladder, and they were late for that too, because they weren't feeling it. Axl didn't feel it. And I remember the show at the Astrodome, and please, somebody from H-Town can help me out, because I'm sure they were there, because there were 68,000 people. But Metallica opened. It was when James had burned his hair off, and his guitar tech was playing, and he was sitting in a chair next to him.
John Marshall.
Yeah, and they, after 45 minutes of waiting for Guns N' Roses to come out, I said, I'm done. I'm leaving. So I left, and everybody that I knew that tried to hang around, some of them waited up to 3 hours before.
Yeah, that's when they were showing up like 4 hours late for.
Yeah, they showed up 3 hours later, and then got into a couple of songs, and people started chanting Metallica, Metallica, and Axl threw the mic, and after 3 songs, they were done. And I just thought, who would ever want to even espouse a band like that? That just, anyway. So Guns N' Roses, that was probably my worst experience, because live music to me, it makes a difference. I can see an like Winger, okay, I admit it. I saw Winger and I loved them. I've seen Poison twice. Not my normal cup of tea. I mean, you can actually read their logo. But yeah, live they rule. Live. Yeah, they're great.
Surprised me how good they were live. I'm not a Poison fan, and I was blown away how good. Even now, they're still good live.
They're fun, man. Yeah.
So the live experience in music has something to do with my love for music, but I am not going to wait for some petulant child for 3 hours to show up when he feels it. So that and my other bad experience is when I was out with Turbid Turbine North, and they got to play the opening slot on a Mayhem, the last Mayhem tour in, and I want to say it was 2009. We were down in Houston at the Woodlands Theater, and we had all access badges, and Turbine just absolutely destroyed. It was really, and I think on that stage was Asking Alexandria and All That Remains, and whatever, some forgettable new metal bands, but Turbine destroyed. And then we went over to they had the side stage and the big stage, and I just remember thinking to myself, Anthrax, Motorhead, Slayer, and then opening, all those three people are opening for Slipknot. But anyway, they ran us out the back door, and they were not nice about it. They didn't say, hey, can you guys please leave? We have a closed backstage, which I would have understood. They physically removed us from backstage. So after seeing their entire set backtracked, vocals, everything, except for the guys banging on the kegs that were up on the lifts, I just said, this is BS, man. These guys are not even playing. They're just performing. And I knew for a fact, because we had kind of befriended the All That Remains guitarist. That's how All That Remains got on that tour, is the guitarist offered to play all the lead parts from backstage. He had a television monitor, had headphones, and was ripping leads when all the other clowns on stage were jumping up and down. And I just thought, man, I found it offensive. So that was probably, it's like a tie for first. Slipknot or the Guns N' Roses thing, and it's all about attitude. And like I said, I've seen bands I don't like at all live and said, you know what, that was decent. At least it's respectable. And I mean, even Saturday night, we went to see Creeper, and because that's Tex Duncan is Steph's brother, and so we try to support them the best we can. And the other bands were really my cup of tea, but you know what? They actually got up there and they performed and they did the best they could, and the venue sounds great, and so I can respect that. But man, when you pull that kind of shenanigans where you're all backtracked and not even singing and not even playing, not even the drums, not even the turntable guy, for crying out loud, and I don't even know what his name is, Clown. I don't know what I don't know. Anyway, it just set me off. I just said, you know what? I'm so done with this. And we could, as a side note, get into the price of tickets. I can't imagine paying several $100s to see that kind of crap. That would have really been offensive to me. And the third one was, speaking of high dollar tickets, we went to the Def Leppard, Motley Crue, Poison, Joan Jett, and there was somebody else on that bill. But yeah, speaking of Chris Bell, he played that show Saturday night, and I loved them. His band Perceived is awesome. But anyway, we went to that, it was a big stadium tour. It was at the new Rangers ballpark, Globe Life Stadium. And I'm sorry, if Motley Crue hadn't been, they had a banner running of each song's title, I couldn't have told what they were playing, but it was all backtracked. And the one guy that should have been backtracked was Vince Neil, and he wasn't. He sounded like a feral cat with his paw caught in the door. I mean, it was horrible. And yet I know my cousin had paid $100+ for ech seat, because he had given them to me and said, hey, if you want to donate a little to the cause, And I just thought, why would you try to get over on people like that? So anyway, those are three examples of my worst. And like I said, I've seen some bad musicianship, but if you're doing it under the right auspices, then I'm cool with that. Whether I'm going to go run out and buy your whole catalog of records or not. Like you and I talked about, Scott, I've seen Aerosmith, and I love Aerosmith, and I've seen them where they absolutely suck. And then I saw them on the Done with Mirrors tour, and I'm like blown away how great they are. So I go with an open mind no matter who it is. But man, if you backtrack your entire set, I'm sorry, you're going to get pushback from me. Or if you give me this stupid attitude and I'm not going to show up for 3 hours, bye-bye. I'm going home early. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. It's what we're doing. We're talking.
You
about
got me riled up.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of concerts. I mean, I played in bands for 20 some years, so I've seen a lot of shows and played a lot of shows. But I was trying to think what was the worst concert experience, and some of the worst concert experience were some of my favorite bands. I'm a huge King's X fan. Love King's X. Saw them opening up for Hammerfall and Dio, and I was super pumped to see King's X because I hadn't seen them before. And they got up on stage. They started off great. Played the first 2 songs, and something was going on, and Doug was getting irritated with the sound on the stage. He kept pointing down at the monitors. He couldn't hear himself. Just irritated. In the middle of the 3rd song, which I think was Dogman, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember the song now. I think about Dogman, but anyhow, he throws his bass down on the ground, continues to sing for a few seconds, throws the microphone down on the ground, and walks off the stage and leaves his band members on stage to finish the song by themselves. And then they just look up, and the drummer just looks at the crowd and shrugs his shoulders, and they get up off and walk off the stage.
Wow.
3 songs. I was like, what the hell? So, I mean, I know that was an off night because I've heard everybody say how great King's X is live, but okay, well, I mean, I was there to see King's X and got robbed. So it kind of pissed me off, I mean, I got to see Hammerfall and Dio too. Who both were great. But I've seen Dio many times before. So anyhow, but that was one of the worst. I've seen Dokken 4 times in my lifetime. One time opening for Whitesnake, and they were phenomenal. Dokken was great. They were just on it. Don was singing well. The band was great. But the other 3 times I've seen Dokken, I swear someone stapled Don's feet to the stage. He couldn't move. And his vocals were horrible. I mean, just bad. It was the bass player doing all the vocals. So yeah, that was I think the worst one was I seen him with Cinderella and Slaughter, and we're talking about Poison, and Poison were great. But yeah, Dokken was just bad. They just were not good. They were sloppy. The vocals were terrible. And like I said, Don couldn't have been more bored. And I felt bad for him because someone must have nailed his feet to the stage because he couldn't move. Just awful.
I've seen a couple of bad performances there, but unfortunately they were, I think, alcohol induced or something, because I've seen a couple of just things happen on stage that were just like, wow, what is going on? Am I really seeing this right now? But as far as mine, I wouldn't say would have to do with bad performances. Most of the time for me, if I have a bad concert experience, it's not the band, because we're all old enough and we've been to enough concerts that we know you can check it out on YouTube now. And I just got lucky back in the day. I saw so many good concerts, but I have walked out of Alter Bridge and I have walked out of Queensryche at the same venue for the same reason. The Southside Ballroom in South Dallas is the worst venue I've ever been to, barring, I'm talking including clubs with little PV sound systems. I'm talking about, arenas that, the sound gets lost in. That place is like getting packed into a can of sardines. It is an awful, awful experience. I don't even like going to the big sheds because there's 15,000 people in there, and I don't even like touching the person next to me. I'd rather go to Trees or a small club and watch the show comfortably because I'm old. I mean, I guess I could take a recliner and put my feet up while I was there, but I've only walked out of a couple of things. I walked out of Queensryche there. I stuck around for this Alter Bridge tour that was recent, and I really desperately wanted to see Alter Bridge. Chris Manning, singer, was there with his former band, and I wanted to see him. They were great. Wolfie Van Halen was great. But we get there in plenty of time, and we are all the way at the back of this place, standing room only, and you can just barely tell what's going on. It's like you're watching it, from a mile away. So that to me has been my worst concert experience. I'm sure that I've seen some really awful bands and awful opening bands and stuff like that, and I just don't remember. But and then there was the Wasp debacle at Gas Monkey. We
Did
can
that place
hear
close
them.
down now?
Anybody that
Yes.
defends. I understand that people fill in keyboard tracks or maybe backing vocal tracks or something like that. I don't really care. I know everybody's got an opinion about that. My preference is to see the band live. And to Scott's point about Don Dokken, I will buy the new Dokken album, like Fraser said, and I probably will go see them again. And I don't care if Don's awful. He's one of my heroes. I don't care if people think he's awful, say he's awful, if he actually is. He's one of my heroes. And if I want to go see him, I'm going to pay my money and I'm going to go see him. That's my choice. And he even said this past week, if you don't like the way I'm singing, then don't come to the show. And I kind of respect that a little bit, because it takes balls to say that. And I guess he's done enough in his life that, hey, if you don't want to show up, don't show up. Who cares? I think a lot of bands couldn't survive that. But I do respect the fact that they're not piping in his vocals and shit like that. However, when we were going to see Wasp that night, we're outside, and you can hear them practicing the backup tracks. And it's basically the record. I mean, it was the record getting played. And maybe they were just playing along with it. I don't know, but it was so odd. They kept piping it through the sound system during sound check. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And then that was the ill-fated night where they got shut down because the venue oversold it. Again, not the band's fault. I still wanted to see, Blackie swinging around on Elvis, backing tracks or not. I wanted to see the show. And the venue completely fucked it. So I think the venue has caused problems in my bad concert experiences more than the band has, and I've seen bands on great nights and off nights and whatever. So
sure.
I think mine comes from that.
The off night thing doesn't really bother me because I was a musician for a long time and I had off nights where I was off the whole show. And I just saw last year, the Bay Area Returns show,
right?
With who was that? Death Angel and Exodus
and
Gary Holt was off the entire show. I mean, he was about a half a note ahead the whole show. It was driving me nuts. I still enjoyed myself. Dave Lombardo, it was his first show with Testament, and you could tell he didn't know all the songs completely yet. Like the fills were, and these are songs where every roll, every fill. And he was off. Still had a blast. I've seen Mike Watt. I don't know if you guys know Mike Watt, the punk bassist from back in the day. I've seen him get booed off stage because the band sounded so bad. It was still a killer night. It was a great story. He actually threatened to fight everybody in the crowd. There were like 5,000 people in the crowd. He was the opening band for Primus and like 94, and he jumped out, and the security had to hold him back because he was trying to start a fight with the whole audience. So I've been to some crazy shows, but the stuff that blows me or that upsets me was, so I saw Sepultura about 2 years ago with the current lineup. I had no interest in seeing Sepultura. I was going to leave before they came on. I'm not a fan of them without Max and Igor. And, I was there for Sacred Reich, and a buddy I met up right before Sepultura came on. So I stuck around, and they sounded pretty good. What pissed me off and ruined the night for me was Andreas Kisser's up on stage playing guitar, and they have a rhythm. The guitar tech is playing rhythm guitar on the side of the stage. You can see him playing the rhythm. Andreas Kisser gives him no credit, doesn't point him out, thank him, nothing. Just ignores the fact that he's actually playing with the band. And stuff like that drives me crazy when bands do stuff like that. And so that was a bad one for me. And then Kansas. I saw Kansas 3 or 4 years ago. I've always loved Kansas.
Oh, no, don't tell me this. I don't want to know this.
No, listen, they sounded fantastic. So they opened for Leonard Skinner. It was one of the last shows with Rossington playing the whole show before, for the last few years, he could only do like 1 or 2 songs at the end. But Kansas opened, and they opened up with one of their big hits. I don't remember which one it was. It was fantastic. And then they went into like 10 minutes of just absolute wankery, this prog spiral. Like people were literally falling asleep as they were. I was so bad. Don't get me, it was good, but it was going nowhere. It wasn't like one of their songs. Nobody had any interest in it, And then they played another one of their big hits. And then they did the same thing. It was 40 minutes of this. There were 3 good songs with like 10 or 15 minute just progressive spirals with no lyrics. I mean, it was one of the worst shows I've seen. It drove me nuts. And then, Leonard Skinner came out and just absolutely blew it away. But yeah, it's stuff like that. I went to that same tour, John, with Motley Crue and them at the stadium. Here in Atlanta was the very first night and the sound was off. We still had a blast. We were still singing along to the songs, I've seen Motley Crue their last 3 or 4 tours, and Vince has always sounded terrible, and I've always had a good time. Stuff like that doesn't really bother me. But yeah, when I go to see a band like Kansas, I go to see, they've got 30 great songs. Why do this other, this progressive stuff that nobody's interested in?
Yeah, I get that. I want to go back to a question that Integrity 101 asked. Can someone explain to a layman backing tracks live means the live performance has studio recorded parts during the live show? Is that correct? If so, yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There is so much evidence on YouTube of singers walking away from the mic and their lead vocal is going.
That's not even the worst. The worst is all the stuff with Motley Crue. Nikki Sixx kicking Mick Mars out of the band, the only one that was playing live the whole time. And there's video after video of Mick Mars talking and dancing around with the bass playing, and he's not touching the bass at all. It's insane.
Of Nikki Sixx, you mean?
Yeah, who'd I say?
Mick.
Yeah, sorry. Mick is the only one that was playing live. He refused to use backing tracks. So, but yeah, it's a funny story. I just saw Danzig a couple weeks ago, and he was having mic problems, and he kind of did like Doug Pinnick, where he got mad and threw the mic down and started yelling at the sound guy because the mic kept getting screwed. The cord was bad, and he kind of went into it though. After that, he's like, "Listen, all these bands that are out there," he's like, I'm 65 years old. My voice has gone to shit. I'm still singing. So he's like, fuck all these bands that are using backing tracks and backing vocals, and you're here for a show. You're here to hear me sing. And it was a great show. He was off a little bit. Yeah. He can't hit some of those notes he used to hit, but man, it was still a killer show.
Yeah. I agree with Gary for the most part. Live I don't disagree with you, Gary. I don't mean it like that. Live should be live, warts and all. I agree with that. But I really don't mind a little keyboard help or a little, like the bass player of Dokken is a fantastic singer. Obviously, he's helping on the harmonies and stuff. I got no problem with any of that. And I don't care. Yeah, I guess to a certain extent, that's always been part of the show because Robert Mason is on record as saying he stood on the side of the stage with a mic plugged in and sang Ozzy's parts back around No More Tears and all that. And I was like, that's frustrating.
I don't mind some backing, like I don't mind having a doubling up the guitar. If you're still playing the guitar if the band is still playing, I'm fine with that if they have backing vocals and stuff like that. But when they're not even playing, you know,
Well,
when they're basically lip syncing or instrument syncing or whatever you want to call it, you know,
well,
that's when I have a problem with it.
And if you're a single guitar player, my buddy does it all the time live.
Oh, yeah,
You know, You'll record the rhythm part while literally on stage while you're playing. You hit a button on the pedal, it records it, and it keeps playing the rhythm that you just played.
Yeah, the reloopers
solo, and then you kick the pedal again, and it goes. I got no problem with any of that. But
that's what pissed me off about Sepultura, though. If had they done that, I would have been fine because Andreas was still playing guitar. I just don't like when your guitar tech's playing the entire show, playing rhythm on the side. You can kind of see him on the side and you give him no credit for it, you know?
Yeah.
Agreed. Okay. Well, I guess that, and yes, I guess that was my main issue with the whole Slipknot thing is because I zoom in on that stuff because I kind of like how sound is created and whatever. And if you sound great, you sound great, but you could even see the drummer, and I think this is right after. Didn't they have a guy named Jim Gray that passed away?
Yeah,
who was a lead singer or something, or a lead guitarist, or a bass player. Well, they had a guy strumming guitar, no bass player, and yet you could still hear the bass in the track. So that got my attention. And then the turntable dude had his tone arms locked and the record spinning, but you know he wasn't cutting, scratching, whatever. And then when Corey jumped from one of the keg lifts down to the ground, you know, drop, stop, and roll, and didn't miss a note, I thought, okay, the gig is up now. So then I started to scrutinize, and I even borrowed some binoculars, and not one dude except for the guys banging on the kegs were playing. So anyway, let's stop talking about that's done with. We're done with the negative. Let's talk about our best concert experiences. So, should I start?
Yeah.
I've got 4 of them. Led Zeppelin 1977 in Chicago. I couldn't believe I was seeing what I was seeing. It was nearly 3 hours worth of music. It was unbelievable. And it was loud. And it was awesome. So ironically, as I look at my list, because you know I make lists, my 2 best experiences were outside. 1983, believe it or not, I went to a very extremely conservative college out in Utah, and they had Journey, Bryan Adams, and Rail from Seattle opening or are playing. This was in 93, and it was unbelievably good. I mean, all the bands were great. Rail is a 3-piece, more metal than rock, I think. And Bryan Adams, great songwriter, and played all his hits. And then Journey just came out and just smoldered us. And they played 26 songs, including 2 encores. It was really, really phenomenal. And it, you know, here I am in college. I'm about to get out of college, and I thought I'd seen it all, but Journey was phenomenal. My next one was Ozric Tentacles at the Abyss in Houston, and you Houstonians will know of that club because that club had it was an old Catholic church that they converted into a venue, so it had some haunting reality to it. But this would have been in '94, and there's a record store down there called Vinyl Edge, and a guy named Chuck Roast. I don't think anybody knows what his last name is. He's known as Chuck Roast. He's been in the music scene for years. He somehow booked Ozric Tentacles off a very unique 94 tour in 94. And they played for hours and hours, and it was just unbelievably good. And my last one is Wacken Open Air in Wacken, Germany, just outside of kind of north and west of Frankfurt in 2006. This is right before it got to be such a massive cattle call. 4 stages, including the 10th stage in the back. But I mean, the list of bands, we went on the Saturday or the Friday night. They had a tribute to the Scorpions, and they had everyone that had ever played in the Scorpions play at least one song on stage. They had White Snake, and then Saturday they had. Let's see, who is Aborted was the band that started at 10 o'clock a.m. And it was such a cool experience because, to your point, Rob, about the surroundings or the venue being a negative or a positive. Well, this was such a positive thing. The coolest thing about it was I saw people camping on site. This is like a 40-acre space, but it's a cow pasture because Wacken means cow in German. And there were people out collecting garbage, and they'd weigh it, and they would get paid for collecting the trash. So the place was spotless. I understand this year it rained and it got really super sloppy. But anyway, but I got to see Soulfly, Motorhead, Hatebreed, Morbid Angel, Aborted, Arch Enemy, and this was all before 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, it was unbelievable. And they have these two massive stages, so you just sort of look at one stage and then look at the other. And then if you want to get crazy and go see Nocturnal Rites or Overkill or whatever, you just go to the side stage, and then you're basically in a venue the size of the Rail Club, but except you're outdoors and you're standing 30 feet from your music heroes. So, and I was fortunate enough to Michael Ammett from Arch Enemy, who I'd known since the Carcass era. He got us all access. So we actually got to go to a real bathroom and didn't have to use the trough just to the right of stage left there, outdoors in front of everybody. And it was really cool. We were on German radio. We got interviewed by German radio. They were wanting to know where we were from. And interestingly enough, Germans have a real fondness for Texans. And you know me, I'm always trying to wear a shirt that nobody would recognize or have, but somebody recognized that I was wearing a Vesperian Sorrow shirt, which is a black metal band from Austin, Texas. They actually recognized it and ran across the street and were like, what do I have to do? So I just gave them the shirt. They gave me a shirt. I gave them a shirt. So very accommodating. But one of I don't know how it would be now, because I understand that Wacken is just you look on the back of the shirt of all the bands that are there and you can't even read them. It's gone from, I remember John Perez, our friend who's been on the show from Solitude Eternus and Liquid Sound Company, said that he played some of the first ones and there were maybe 15 to 20,000 people and there were like 9 bands in 2 days. Well, there's probably 400 bands now, and it is like a 20-minute cattle call. It's like the old Milwaukee Metal Fest. And at 20 minutes, they pull the plug, and then it's the next band on the other stage, and they just do this all night. But anyway, Wacken 2006, Led Zeppelin in 77, Ozrix in 94, and then Journey, Bryan Adams, and Rail in 83. So, what say ye?
You're on mute.
You're muted, buddy.
Some of my favorite concerts have been like the small. My dogs are barking, so I muted myself. Sorry about that. The small venue shows were like there's nobody there, and I've seen a lot of those. But I was like, really, what show would I really pick if it was just one show that was my favorite? And back in the early 2000s, I got to spend the entire day with Ted Nugent and his band. Mm-hmm. And watch the show from, basically Ted said, you can watch from anywhere you want. You can watch from the side of the stage. You can watch from behind the drum riser. You can watch, he goes, you can watch from the pit. He goes, just don't get in our way. I was like, okay. So I watched half the show right behind Ted Nugent's rack of guitars on the side of the stage. And then the other half I watched from the security pit in the front. So, and then spending the day with him. And then it was Greg Smith on bass. Greg, of course, played in Rainbow for quite a while, so spent quite a bit of time with him and telling me stories about Richie Blackmore and touring with Rainbow, and so that was pretty cool. And then also the drummer was from Dokken, Mick Brown, so I heard lots of stories about Dokken too. That was just an incredible day because I spent the whole day, with a guy I've been a fan of since I was a little kid, basically, literally a little kid. So that was in Beaver Creek, Wisconsin, is when I saw him there. And it was I actually got the whole thing was paid for by somebody else. It was a gift. I won't get into the whole story, but yeah, basically somebody sent me this as a gift, and flew me out there and put me up in a hotel and got me to spend the day with Ted. And we ended up spending like I'm going to say like 2 hours just sitting with me, my buddy, and Ted while he signed. My buddy brought like I'm talking like a pile of crap for him to sign, and he signed every single thing in there without a complaint and just reminisced. He had a Japanese copy of the first Amboy Dukes record with a 16-year-old Ted Nugent on the front cover of it, and
Isn't that
he
where
was
this
just
album on my wall got signed?
yes, it is absolutely. So yeah, anyhow, that was an incredible show.
About, by the way,
no, it was another buddy of mine who's since passed away. But yeah, I mean, I also pulled this. I just thought it was. I mean, like I said, a lot of those small shows are some of my favorites, but this one here, there was nobody there. It was at a club, a Launchpad in New Mexico. It was a small club. My band played there many times. Nevermore, Destiny's End, and Iced Earth headlining, and Angel Rod actually played at the end after everybody else. But I didn't actually stick around for Angel Rod. I split. But I got to see Iced Earth, Nevermore, and Destiny's End, and like I said, nobody was there, but got to meet James Rivera from Hellstar and got to meet all the Iced Earth guys. They were all just so cool. It was just weird that there was nobody there. I mean, maybe 50 or 60 people in the club. So this, I could tell lots of like when Harmless Rebel and I went to go see Raven.
Dude, that was amazing. They're always
they were so amazing, but there was nobody there.
It blows me out. This is a band that used to play stadiums with in huge arenas. And there's literally like 20 people there, and they still kill it.
Yep, exactly. So same thing when I went to see Raven the year after. When I went to see him in California, it was the same way, man. There was maybe 50 people in the audience, and but they were great. They put on a great show.
Man, I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna go quick because I know we're out of time, and I want to hear what Steve has to say. I'm gonna kind of go off the metal page a little bit because I've seen Pantera in clubs. I've seen Metallica and Slayer and Judas Priest and Exodus. We all have, and we've seen just amazing shows. But I think I'm gonna take one for pure spectacle, and I'm gonna take two for just pure unadulterated talent and close enough that you could just feel them breathing on you. Which is not this one. For pure spectacle, I never saw Pink Floyd, but Roger Waters on his Is This the Life We Really Want? Us and Them tour a few years ago was absolutely phenomenal. The technology was amazing. And I was blown away because I'd never seen Pink Floyd, and I guess that's as close as I'll ever get. But that's my very favorite concert of all time, even though I'm a metalhead. And other than that, completely off of the metal page, I saw Eric Gales at an upscale place that's down the road from my house here in McKinney. And the first time I saw him, it was shocking, absolutely shocking how amazing he was on guitar and soulful. And he just oozed feel out of that guitar. It was like a cross between Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jimi Hendrix. It was absolutely emotional how great he was. And so that is definitely in my top 3 or 5 or whatever. But another one was recently, and I talked about this, and again, it's from a place of just pure talent. I saw a lady named Maggie Rose up in Denison as part of their summer concert series, and they have rock bands and cover bands and different things, and they do an American Soul kind of thing. And my buddy has gotten to know her and her camp, and so he invited me up, and we went. Absolutely, shockingly, jaw-droppingly good. I mean, tearing up, kind of like I just can't believe the emotion that is coming out of this lady's mouth, And so that blew me away. And then again, I could go on and on and on and on about the million metal shows I've seen, but I think those stick out in my top 5 or 10 of all time for sure. What about you, Steve?
Man, I've been to so many good shows, but there was like a 3 or 4 month stretch, and I think it was late '96, mid to late '96. It may have been late '95, where I just went to some perfect shows. The first one, actually, this band right here, it was the Euthanasia tour, and Fear Factory. Nobody had ever heard of them. They had no radio hits. They opened up. They absolutely destroyed the audience. They were amazing. It was it Demanufacture had just come out, or it was about to come out, and then Korn was the second band. Nobody knew who they were yet. Blind was the only single that they had at that point. It's their first major show. They were amazing. And then Flotsam and Jetsam came out, a hometown band. Flotsam and Jetsam was the low point of the show, and they were still pretty good, And that was the Quattro, I think was the album that they were on. And then Megadeth came out, and that was the first time I saw Megadeth live. And then with Marty Friedman and Nick Menz on, I mean the core lineup, the best lineup, they were just absolutely fantastic. Nick Menza blew me away live. He was just so good. And then a couple months later was the very first Ozfest. So the very first Ozfest took place in Phoenix. It was one stage. It wasn't supposed to be a touring thing. It was 2 shows. It was a show in Phoenix and a show in LA. And that was supposed to be the end of Ozfest. And then the next year it turned into a big touring thing. But the very first Ozfest was in Phoenix. And it was Danzig and Sepultura and Slayer. And I had seen everybody on the set list but Sepultura, which was my favorite band at the time. This was a month before Max left the band. So at the end of the original run. And man, they just blew me away. They were so good live. No stage props, nothing. It's just the band on the stage just killing it. And then like a couple months after that, Beastie Boys were touring for... what was the album with Sabotage? They were touring for Sabotage, and Bad Brains opened. I had never heard of I had heard of them. I had never heard them before. They did this absolutely killer set, and then they actually came out into the audience while the Beastie Boys were playing, and they were actually in the mosh pits for the Beastie Boys. I mean, it was an insane show. The Beastie Boys had this wall of sound, and we know all the hits from the Beastie Boys, but they were doing these funk instrumentals that I had never heard before, and it blew me away how good those guys were. And that Beastie Boys show is still one of the best shows I've ever been to.
That's awesome.
They sold out Compton Terrace, and Compton Terrace was a huge amphitheater style field. It was basically a big dirt lot next to a racetrack in the desert that held like 35,000 people, and the Beastie Boys sold it out. And it was just an amazing show. It was like 120 degrees. We're sweating our asses off. Nobody cared. Just into it, Somebody mentioned Reverend Horton Heat always doing a great show. I just saw him like 6 months ago. So Arizona, I'm from Phoenix. Arizona has a huge rockabilly and psychobilly scene. So every time I saw him in Arizona, it's like 1,000 people. There's not a scene like that here in Atlanta. And I saw him in a little tiny club with maybe 35 people there. He was literally, I could reach out and touch him. He was so close to me. And one of the best shows I've been to recently. He's still amazing live. There's a lot. I just saw the original Misfits lineup. They blew me away. There's just so much good music out there,
Yeah, there really is. And there's a lot more coming, man. These guys are putting out albums like crazy, and there's new bands popping up. I can barely keep up anymore.
I know High Spirits. I don't know if you guys know them, new wave of traditional metal band from Chicago. I just saw them not too long ago. Another amazing live band that just harkens back to 82, 83. And yeah, man, there's so much. Yeah, somebody mentioned Pantera. I saw Pantera 2 weeks ago. Pantera sounds better now than they did in the late 90s. Phil Anselmo in the late 90s was slurring the words. He could barely stand up. He was so wasted. He sounded so good when I saw him 2 weeks ago. I was sending videos to Scott saying, I can't believe that Phil sounds this good, He can even now he can barely talk in interviews. But man, when he gets on stage, it all comes back. He sounded fantastic.
Yeah, I kind of wish I'd gone to see that, but I didn't want to fight that huge crowd. But anyway, yeah. Well, we're 10 minutes over. We're gonna get out of here. That was a good one, Carcass.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, sometimes, like Steve said, there's so much good stuff out there. It's like, so, excuse me if I don't really think the new Metallica is worth slowing down for, you know what I mean? Because there's something better waiting down the road. But to each their own. I mean, like I said, I think this was an interesting trip down memory lane because we're all kind of from 4 different eras and from different parts of the world. So, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's a good
Here
one.
we
I
are.
appreciate it. Episode 196. We're only 4 episodes away from 200.
That is insanity, dude.
200 episodes. Wow. That's awesome. Well, anybody got any parting shots before we get out of here?
Man, right. I'm still blown away by all the people that participate, and I encourage it. Man, just keep it coming.
Yeah, the comments, we appreciate that. That's the best part of the show is we used to be so regimented in talking about a topic and staying on topic and all this kind of stuff. But now it's just so much more fun to interact with the comments and kind of talk to people through the comments. And I get some messages now and again in email or on Facebook or whatever. And that's all. It's all good, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, before you sign off real quick. Hey, Gary Ireton, if you're still listening. Yeah, I was at that same Tram show in '83 at the Spectrum, so we were probably both the same show. Anyhow,
see, that's the other crazy thing. I mean, I actually knew of Steph 25 years ago when she was touring as one of the Go-Go Girls with the Jenna Tortures when they were touring with Type O Negative and those types of bands. And she was the Grinder Girl, and I had made fun of it and said, I told a friend of mine, I want that for my girlfriend. And we ha-ha'd about it. And the big circle of life comes back around. And I told my friend, in fact, this was Rob Doom. I said, you remember when I said I wanted Grinder Girl as a girlfriend? Well, guess who I'm dating? It's just crazy. So I think it's fun when we find out we were in the same room as of other people that we've recently met or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
It's insanity. Awesome. We could probably do a whole episode on that.
Yeah. I saw Scott a million years ago and didn't have a clue who he was. Saw him play, and now we work together every day. So
crazy.
Anyway, well, you can follow me on Instagram at Metal Robs Records. You can follow Scott on YouTube by searching Scott Waters or just Googling No Life Till Metal, and it will get you to all the stuff he does. You can follow Carcass at Carcass John Art on Instagram, and you can find Steve. It's Harmless Rebel on YouTube, right?
Yeah,
I will get that right one of these days. But Google Harmless Rebel on YouTube, and you'll find Steve and all his greatness. So, without further ado, no parting shots. You know how we do it. Until next time, metal
will prevail.
You know it.
Yep.
You do.